Hello everyone, with the Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the Caribbean. It is Wednesday evening, February 1st, 2023. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Also feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather has been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any other related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. I respond to all comments and I really look for this stuff. Alright, so let us take a look at the significant feature map across the Atlantic for this evening. We can see that we have a ridge of high pressure right there to the north of Cuba, and we can see that we have multiple troughs across portions of the open waters of the Atlantic. And if you actually take a look at the visible satellite images, we can see that yes, we have that high pressure ridge to the north of Cuba sending a lot of easterly winds, and a lot of low level clouds are moving in that easterly winds across portions of the Caribbean. And we can see the clouds associated with those troughs across portions of the open waters of the Atlantic east of the Caribbean. Alright, so let us focus our attention on what was predicted yesterday across Jamaica for today. We saw some amount of blues on both the Euro and the GFS model for the prediction for Wednesday, which indicated some amount of rainfall across portions of northern and eastern Jamaica. What ended up happening? Another post was made this morning at 7:31 a.m. highlighting some amount of clouds across portions of where? Northern Jamaica and eastern Jamaica, bringing some amount of isolated showers to those very spots. So the Euro and the GFS models were spot on where we would have actually received some amount of rainfall this morning. And even up to recording hour, up to the evening hours when the sun went down, you can see that we had the visible satellite images showing all of the cloud cover across Jamaica up until the sun went down. And where do we see majority of the clouds? Across portions of northern and eastern Jamaica, especially across portions of Portland right there. And if we actually take a look at the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology website, this map is showing all the rainfall that we got for the past 12 to 18 hours. And where do we see majority of the rainfall? Across portions of northern Jamaica and eastern Jamaica, just as predicted. Alright, so let's just look at what the temperatures are like for tonight. We can see that we have 25 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 24 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, the usual 21 degrees Celsius in Mandeville. And if you actually take a look on both the Euro and the GFS models for tomorrow, Jamaica seems to be in the clear. What's the clear? We're seeing that we're not getting any yellows or oranges or reds that indicate above normal temperatures, and we're not seeing any blues in that effect across portions of Jamaica. Maybe something on the GFS model across portions of northern Jamaica, but the Euro disagrees with that. So for the most part, we're in the clear, so we're going to be receiving average temperatures. And what's the average temperatures across Jamaica for the month of February? 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And when we calculate that on the thermometer, 86 degrees Fahrenheit is equivalent to about 30 degrees Celsius. If we actually take a look at the dry air map, we can see that we have a lot of dry air indicated by all those yellows, oranges and reds across portions of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. This is expected because it's the dry season right now. February is the peak of the dry season. If we actually take a look at the Saharan air layer forecast now, this is actually showing where the actual Saharan dust is, indicated by all those browns. So as usual across portions of Africa, as well as portions of the main development region right there to the west of Africa. If we actually take a look at the wind shear map for tomorrow, we can see that we're going to be having more of a northwesterly flow across the island. So if there's a chance of afternoon convection, there will be a bias across portions of southern Jamaica if there's afternoon convection. And where do we normally see afternoon convection in Jamaica? Across portions of central and western Jamaica. So more than likely south central or southwestern Jamaica might get in on some of that if there's a chance of afternoon convection. If you actually take a look at the wind forecast, the low level winds are coming in from the east. There will be more of a strong bias across portions of northern Jamaica. But where do we see all the air piling up? Where do we have the least amount of winds? Across portions of inland areas of central and western Jamaica on both maps. So just like what the shear map shows, if there's a chance of afternoon convection, there might be a bias towards the south coast. So maybe some sections of Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth or Westmoreland will be where the afternoon convection will be. As it relates to the precipitation forecast, we can see that even up to tonight 10 p.m. we can see some amount of blues across portions of northern and eastern Jamaica on both the Euro and the GFS model. If we look ahead, we see some more blues indicating some amount of rainfall at 4 a.m. across portions of northern and eastern Jamaica. We know that when we have consensus like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Moving ahead to 1 p.m. on Thursday. Look at this, we see some more blues across portions of eastern Jamaica on both the Euro and the GFS. Then by 4 p.m., we see that yes, we have blues across portions of eastern Jamaica, as well as portions of central and western Jamaica. And just as stated, maybe the bias will be across portions of southern Jamaica, so maybe Westmoreland, Negril, maybe Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston might get on some amount of afternoon convection in the afternoon hours. If we actually take a look at the accumulated precipitation forecast, there seems to be a bias on the Euro. This is showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 3:00 on Friday. When we calculate that, that's about 10 p.m. on Thursday. So all of this rainfall, we can see that there's a bias to northern and eastern Jamaica. The GFS is not as robust as the Euro. The GFS is showing up to 0.18 of an inch of rainfall expected across portions of northern and eastern Jamaica. The Euro is a bit more robust with up to 0.45 of an inch of rainfall across the same spots, northern and eastern Jamaica. Regardless of the amount of rainfall, there is still rainfall being showed for these various spots, and we know that when we have consensus like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let's focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we can see some amount of low-level clouds pushing its way into portions of Nicaragua, portions of Costa Rica, portions of the ABC Islands as well. Even sections of Puerto Rico getting in on some of that rainfall up to the evening hours, as well as portions of northern Hispaniola right there. And if we actually take a look at the Doppler radar images, we know that Doppler radar images show the actual rainfall as opposed to satellite images that show cloud cover. We know that we can have cloud cover over an area and not necessarily rainfall. We can see that yes, that east-northeasterly flow came in with some amount of low-level clouds, and all of this brought some amount of rainfall, scattered showers to portions of Puerto Rico, as well as sections of the island of the Leeward Islands. So portions of St. Kitts, portions of Guadeloupe, the British Virgin Islands, as usual, gotten on some amount of rainfall today. If we actually take a look at the Barbados radar, we can see some amount of blues and greens that indicate light to moderate rainfall to the north as well as to the west of Barbados right there. So sections of, let's say, St. Vincent getting in on some of that rainfall, maybe even Grenada getting in on some rainfall as well, maybe later tonight. Even Tobago getting in on some rainfall up to recording hour as we speak. If we actually take a look at a wider view of the rest of the basin, we can see that most of the rainfall is concentrated across portions of the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao. Not so much in the way of rainfall across portions of Guyana or Suriname, but French Guyana, we can see some amount of greens and blues right there that represents some amount of rainfall across those areas. If we actually take a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we can see where for the most part the islands of the Greater Antilles seem to be in the clear, which means that they're going to be receiving average temperatures, but it's the southern part of the Caribbean and the eastern part of the Caribbean that seem to be in the blues that represent below normal temperatures. So portions of the ABC Islands, northern Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, portions of the Windward Islands, so from Barbados all the way over to the west of Barbados, including islands such as Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and maybe even Grenada getting in on some amount of below average temperatures. As it relates to the Saharan dust forecast, majority of the Caribbean is in the clear. Most of the dust, as stated, is across portions of the main development region. As it relates to the precipitation forecast, however, this map is showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Thursday, and we can see that there is consensus on where the rainfall is actually expected. You can see some amount of greens on the Euro model, while the GFS is a bit more robust to show some amount of rainfall right there across portions of the ABC Islands, as well as areas north of there across the open waters. We can see some amount of rainfall across Puerto Rico, sections of the northeastern Caribbean as well. The heaviest of the rainfall seems to be across portions of Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Even up to an inch of rainfall is expected, so there is even a chance of some amount of isolated flooding across those spots. Not so much in the way of rainfall for portions of the Windward Islands, including Barbados or Trinidad and Tobago, from now up until 10 p.m. on Thursday. However, we know that when we have consensus like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. If we actually take a look at the western portion of the basin, we can see that yes, we have some amount of rainfall across portions of eastern Mexico, as well as portions of Belize on both the Euro and the GFS, maybe even sections of Guatemala getting in on some of that rainfall as well. Alright, so let us turn our attention on the post that was made yesterday by the Climate Prediction Center. They were highlighting where it's going to be raining across portions of the world for the next 2 weeks. They're stating that from February 8th to the 14th, across the Caribbean, we're going to be seeing some greens. The greens represent some amount of above normal rainfall. Where do we see this? Across portions of the northeastern Caribbean. So portions of Puerto Rico, portions of, let's say, the US and British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, and Antigua and Barbuda, even Guadeloupe getting in on some of that rainfall that's predicted. So we shall see what actually unfolds with that. We know that the Climate Prediction Center, sometimes they say one thing now and another the other. So we shall see exactly what unfolds during the week of February 8th to the 14th. As it relates to the week of February 15th to the 21st, we don't see much happening across the Caribbean. We actually see some browns to the north of the Caribbean. And we know that the browns represent some amount of below average rainfall. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.